Jane, have you made any of the blocks, or are you just starting?
Did I skip that too far?
I looked at the book.
So I knew that Jane was just starting, and so she came.
Run, baby.
For those of you that weren't here last time, we are doing a sew-along class on 2 weeks from today, and it's daytime. You can come anytime between 1 to 7. So that way you can bring the blocks you need help on, or if you just want to sit and sew with other people, bring your machine and your blocks, and we can work on those together. And we had 4 or 5 or 6 last time, and I think everybody got a lot out of it.
Yeah, there's your support group.
Well, and Janet said she was going to come next time.
Pardon me?
I said Janet said she was going to come next time, and Jane said she was going to come. So.
See, here's the block.
Yeah, proof.
I got a block. I have 2. I got 2 done. That was the one I had going when I left.
Yes.
So it doesn't look too bad.
Nope, looks good.
Yeah. It's not perfect. Don't look too close. But it's close. It's good enough for government work for me. And I forgot what the other one was. I forgot what the other one was.
Let's see, what other one did we do that day?
There was all those lysines that I added extra
Oh,
lysines
nasty.
to.
It was also a red and
Oh, yes, it was
That
that
one.
one.
red, blue, and whatever.
That's the one.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was horrible. I could have got that done without paying.
But you could do it now without me.
And then I've got one more on the sewing machine. That one was done.
Yay. So for those of you who haven't been here before, when we started this, well, first of all, we'll back way up. We started the 30s Club 7 years ago. And we said, oh, we'll do this for a year. And Kathleen graciously agreed to be our hostess, and she was our historian and gave us a lesson of 30s quilts, 30s designers, 30s fabrics, you know, everything to do with 30s. We talked about movies in the 30s, the WPA, all the kinds of programs, government programs. Eleanor, what was her name? Roosevelt. It just whoosh. So, but we did all kinds of things like that, and we almost got to the feeling of, you know, the 30s only lasted 10 years, so we're running out of stuff to talk about. But each year we have had a block of the month or a project of the month to work on, and it was totally optional. And then we saw that this new book, The Farmer's Wife, 1930s blocks were coming out, and I said, oh, that's cool, and everybody said, oh, we want to do that, and I said, all right, we'll do that, without ever looking at the patterns.
We all did it.
And so the patterns were not your average simple 9-patch blocks, we discovered.
There's one.
Well, there actually will be 4 or 5 before you're done, but I put them at the end because I thought if I give them those first and then I give them these hard ones, they're going to hate me. So that's how we started out doing demonstrations each month. And the first month, we were kind of overwhelmed, and I was sitting at the machine and 20 people around me and they couldn't see. So off we go to Best Buy and call our son Justin and say, help. So we went to buy a projector, but decided this was a better fix for us. And then after we get through today, in 3 or 4 days or a week, whatever Justin has time for, it'll show up on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't had him show you how to subscribe, you can on your phone subscribe to our YouTube channel, or just go to Sager Creek Quilts YouTube channel and subscribe, and that way you get notifications anytime we post something new. And my intention was to start out and do some of the blocks, and when everybody's really comfortable with them, move on to some other things like machine applique, binding, piping, several other things that I thought it might be nice if we had demonstrations, but we haven't gotten past the blocks yet. Because somebody said, and I don't know who it was, said these blocks are intense. And some of them are. Some of them aren't so bad. But I would say, if you ask everybody, and if they were honest, they would tell you that they are improving and they're less scared of it.
Oh, yeah. This last time was
Yeah.
a breeze.
So it makes a huge difference. and I say don't be scared, you know, we can always drag up a little more fabric and try it again, so. But that's what we're doing. And I will also tell you, what I demonstrate is not the only way to approach the blocks. It's just a way that I found that I have success with. And then we have also talked about different kinds of foundations for paper piecing. You can use vellum, you can use newsprint, you can use typing paper, onion skin paper, and there Carol Doak's paper, which is actually cut newsprint paper. And I tend to use freezer paper, whether I'm doing paper piecing, paper foundation piecing, or templates. Tonight's we don't have templates to work with, although all of these blocks are almost a combination, because they're not just a basic paper piecing, they're a combo block where you have some segments that you do in paper foundation piecing, and then you have to assemble them. So then you're basically working with templates at that point. So that's why we've kind of done that. And I don't know of any other things. Now, just as an aside, we'll come back to demonstrations in a minute, but I brought some of the books that are new in the shop, because I usually like to try to show you what's hanging out new. For those of you who are into modern quilting, this is a Tula Pink 100 modern quilt blocks. And then we've got a couple of new quilting patterns that are perfect for modern quilting too. Joe's Little Favorites, if you like. Joe's Little Quilts. They're just little, and you could actually use 30s fabric and it would be real pretty. So we'll just, this one would be fun in 30s. The animal, there was a book called Animal Parade, and it's been out for several years, and this is Animal Parade too. So, Emporia Rose, if you like. I should do this. You can see it up here just as easy. Pretty applique. And here's my philosophy about applique. Machine applique is still applique. Unless you're Aiko, and she's going to do it by hand. And wouldn't this be cute to put your little 30s blocks in? A little zipper bag with a pin cushion to go in it. So it's got little bits of applique. I'll tell you about that in a minute. All Things Quilting, Alex Anderson. And we have the quilt back. I don't know if any of you have seen, if all of you have seen this. I know some of you have. This was the January, February edition, I think. Yeah, January, February. And we do have these at the cutting table for $5. And I don't know what all of this is. That's kind of interesting, but you can still see. And this is a quilt that's hanging in the other room. So it's got a fun little pattern. So we do have those. Yay! That's my second one. There's still 2 more out there that they paid me for, but who knows what they'll be. So I guess since they paid me for it already. Yeah, I guess I don't care. Okay. Are we ready to jump in? All right, month 7. And one thing, for those of you who are still working on month 1, 2, and 3, I think these are easier to read the cutting instructions. They're easier for me to wrap my head around it. When we first started, I would just put like cut 3-inch, and I would write out the word squares of yellow solid. And so then I just started putting the icon there. Makes it a little easier to follow. What I've done is tried to put it where you can see easily what pieces to pre-cut. And when you're doing paper foundation piecing, some of the designers will give you pre-cutting instructions so that you cut a chunk and then you use that chunk for that piece. And that's what this represents, which pieces these are. There is a block in month 8 that you almost have to follow exactly to get the block to come out right, because it's an asymmetrical block. A lot of these, they're symmetrical anyway, so I don't necessarily follow these numbers. I just put them where those colors have to go. Okay, so these are the blocks for this month, and they're on the wall behind me, so you can see them. And we've tried to, in some cases, use the same fabric in a couple of different blocks. But having said that, make sure when you get your fabric, cut your biggest pieces first. Because a lot of times if you're not careful and you cut your little pieces first, then you're left with nothing big enough to do the bigger pieces. And then you may have to have seams where you don't really want them. So I'm going to be demonstrating the bride block this time. It's kind of a nosegay block. The color in your book, it's number 17. The color in your book is not anywhere near like this color, but I didn't like it. And I thought it made it very difficult to follow. So I changed it, and all of the little triangles that form these squares, I used the same fabric. So, and that was the fabric that Judy was looking for earlier. That's why I said I knew that it was coming up in some other blocks. But instead of having, they had two different colors here in these triangles. If you look in your book, you can see that. But I put them the same, so when you get those formed, they form squares of that dark blue. And I also, oh, I know what I was going to tell you. If you'll notice the patterns in your book and the colors, when you get it finished, generally it's going to be reversed to the way it looks. So don't be worried about that. You kind of just have to get used to that and just go with it. Okay, so we're going to start out with this section that some people call that the ice cream cone block. Here's our foundation. And some of you, using freezer paper to foundation piece with is new to you. What I like about it is it contains your fabric and it makes it easier to work with. The first thing you're going to do, and if you are new, make sure that you get a piece of, this is X-ray film, and I'm going to put it over here where you can kind of see it. Make sure you get a piece of X-ray film because that's what we're actually going to use to fold back all of our pieces, and you're going to fold on all of the lines. Okay? So the first piece you're going to put on is the K1 piece. And I'm going to use this piece right here. As long as my piece of fabric fits on that shape, I can see on that side that it does, and when I fold this back, I can see on that side that it does, I can use it. A lot of times, if you watch some of the videos that are on YouTube for paper piecing, they use a chunk as big as this square to fit in that little spot. And it just kills me to just cut that part off and throw it away. So that's one reason why we have pre-cutting instructions. So I'm going to stick the shiny side of my freezer paper to my yellow piece. Okay? Then I'm going to just fold it back where I pre-folded it. If you don't have a add-a-quarter ruler, they're invaluable for paper piecing. Because I can just, there's a lip on the add-a-quarter ruler, and that lip just butts up against the fold in the paper, and I can cut away that part. Alright, so my next piece that I need is this shape right there. And this is what confuses a lot of people with paper piecing, because they're looking at this, way going, okay, now what do I have to put there so it'll fit? When you turn this upside down and you're looking at the next shape you need, as long as you have a piece of fabric that fits where you see at least 1/4 inch past all the corners on this, it will work. Now I can't put it this way because see, this part sticks off. Not only that, I happen to know that I'm going to have an easier time if my bias edges are across the diagonal lines on this block. So I'm going to place it on here kind of funny. I want to make sure that I have my 1/4 inch here past the edges, and I have at least a 1/4 inch past the tip. And then I'm just going to hold on to that, take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to flip it back. Now one thing, and I didn't make a big deal of this, but I am sliding the piece that I'm putting on next face up underneath my first piece, underneath my paper foundation. And I just flip it back. Oh, I'm not even turned on.
Center.
Yes. And make sure that you have your needle centered, because I break a needle pretty regularly on this
So do
machine.
I.
The other thing is you want to shorten your stitch length when you're doing foundation paper piecing. It makes the paper easier to tear out. And folding the pieces back before you sew makes the paper easier to tear out. If you have a needle or a thread cutter on your machine, this is a good time to use it. Okay, so here's my favorite thing about freezer paper. I can flip this over and I can nudge this with the tip of my iron, and that fabric sticks to the paper foundation. So it's contained and it's kept out of my way. My next piece I'm going to add is this piece number 3, and I'm going to, where I've pre-folded that line right there, I'm just going to flip that back. And again, I'm going to use my add a quarter ruler, get rid of the excess here. Next, I need another yellow piece. And on this one, this is actually what I had you cut. So I can find the way this fits on here. You can see that I've got 1/4 of an inch past that tip. It's solid fabric, so it really doesn't matter which way I put it on there. But you always want to put it face up underneath your foundation and any pieces that you've already added to it. Take it to your iron and then flip your your sewing machine, flip your paper back, and we're going to sew this. Now, for those of you who've been around me very long, you know that there's a ruler that makes this shape. Anybody know what that ruler is?
Corner beam.
The corner beam tool makes this very shape. And you could use it for this. I didn't because we're demonstrating paper piecing, but it would work, and the corner beam does make this size. But since the other pieces had to be put together with the foundation paper piecing, I didn't bother with the corner beam on this particular one. So I cut off any excess, and so far that's all I've wasted. Now, when you get to this point, you trim all the way around. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, those of you who are new to watching my demonstrations, when you, let me show you. When you do your paper foundations, 2 things you need to make sure of. You want to make sure that your paper or your printer is set to print actual size pieces, because if you don't, you're going to have some issues later. And there is a little guide down here to show the 1 inch, and you want to take a ruler and make sure that you're within that 1 inch from the little slash to the little slash. The other thing about that is, this is a paper foundation for another block. When I cut that out, I cut off the seam allowance that's printed on here. You don't see any dashed lines, but when this is a different block, but when this was on the paper, it would have had a dashed line 1/4 inch all the way around like this one does. I cut that part off because since these are compound blocks where you have to put sections together, to me it's easier not to have to mess with the seam allowance paper, because that just gives you another seam and more paper to have to tear out and work with. But when you get your one section done, then we're going to add use our add a quarter ruler and cut this off as if we had that seam allowance. Now, you will have to be careful because there is not a lip really on the paper since it's not folded back. So you can just kind of hold it up there and see where it belongs. But now we have the section that goes down here. Okay? So now we're going to do
So people can see it toward you.
this way. There we go.
There you go.
All right, so there's where we're headed. And we've got some of it done. Now I'm going to move it over and we're going to do another section. On this one, we're making 2 sections. This is one section and this is one section. Now on this, I'll have to pay attention because I want to make sure that what goes right here, actually that one goes there. I want to make sure that I get a light with the leaf here and a dark solid here. So you will have to pay attention so that you get the alternating colors. And if you're following on the guidelines here, it tells you what piece, it's right here, it tells you what pieces go there. And after you've done a few of them, you get to where you really don't have to refer to it that much. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is piece number 1. In this case, it's a yellow. And I'm going to take a yellow piece. And I'm going to use my X-ray film, and I'm going to fold on all of the solid lines. And that's just kind of giving me a guideline. So I'm going to put this piece here. Now notice, if I didn't have that little D2 place right here, that triangle would fit on my piece. So a lot of times when you're trying to figure out how you're supposed to put this piece on here so it fits, notice that sometimes pieces that are left out, you can just put those right on there. So I'm going to put piece number 1, D1 there. My next piece I'm going to stitch on is this D2, so I'm going to peel back and I'm going to trim away this little bit. And that's just an easy way to make that little kite shape that I need. My next piece is this blue piece here. And I don't know if you can see it, and I didn't bring a pencil in here. But here's the line right there. And that's the shape. It's just a little corner triangle. So I'm going to take my piece that's going to go there. It's this blue piece. Now, you want the shape of the triangle to match up with the shape of your piece. I'm going to fold it so you can see it easily. See that corner? So I'm going to put it on this way. Everybody see why? And you want to make sure that you have at least 1/4 of an inch past the corners in all of the places, so that you know you have enough fabric to cover that place. So I'm going to lift this up so I can get that folded back out. And I'm sliding it underneath my foundation paper. Okay? So I'm going to hold this down, pull it over here to the machine, and gotta find the pedal. And so then I can just pull this to the iron, and I typically iron from the front. That way you can make sure you don't have any little tucks in there that you weren't aware of. And get rid of that thread tail. Now I'm going to peel this back, and I'm going to actually peel those 2 or 3 stitches, peel the paper back. My next piece is a blue solid, and I've got kind of a long piece to do that with because I need for it to go on that way. Now I've got way more fabric than I need here, but we've kind of learned that it's easier for most of you to get this if you have some extra fabric. So I haven't trimmed this yet. I can go ahead and sew it without trimming it because I can see and make sure that I have room all the way around. But because I've been kind of doing this process, we're going to go ahead and trim that off. You'll get to where you may or may not trim that at the beginning because I've got to go back and trim it later after I get this blue piece on. But see, I'm going to have plenty of room all the way around. I'm going to flip this back because I've had several people tell me you'd rather have a little more fabric to work with.
When we first started, it was on some of those angles. It was hard to get your brain wrapped.
Well,
around
and I think
it's
now
supposed to
some
go.
of you could use the smaller pieces and you'd still be fine.
Yeah, probably.
Because you've kind of gotten used to how I...
It's been such a pleasure with having that extra. And you don't have to worry.
Okay, so I'm going to just flip this back. And now I'm going to use my add a quarter ruler, trim around so that I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. And there's this piece.
It's a pretty block.
It is.
Really yellow.
It is
I like
very.
it.
Okay, now notice there's a piece missing. It's right here. Okay, so on this piece,
Oh, wow.
it's not very big, but it'll work. Thank you. Okay, so my first piece, it's going to go on here like, well, actually, I'm working upside down. The piece that I want to put on first is a yellow piece. So I've got to have, and I've got way more than I need here, but I've got to have a triangle. Do you see why I have it that way? And just press that down. I'm going to fold this back, use my add a quarter ruler, and get rid of this little bit. The next piece I add is a blue triangle. And you can see the shape I need to be. I don't want to put it on this way. Do you see why? I want it to be the same orientation of the triangle I'm getting ready to cover. And I slide the piece under my foundation. And I can match up this side where I've got it folded back because that's already been trimmed to 1/4 of an inch. I'm just going to flip this back. And I'm going to get rid of this little sliver. And here's where that's going to go. Okay? And I'll put those together in a minute. Now this one actually has 4 pieces that I have to put on. You want to follow their instructions for the order they put them on. One reason is sometimes they've paid attention to how the fold lines are going to be in a perfect world. And so just follow those numbers, and that way you can make sure that they will fit on there. Because sometimes if you started on the wrong one, you'd end up not being able to get your pieces on. So my first piece is my yellow, and it's going to go on that way. See why? All right. And I think most of you seem to be much more, whoops, I'm going to move that. Do you see why I'm going to move it? I haven't quite left myself enough room there, so all you have to do is peel it off and do it again. Because I didn't leave myself enough room right in there, and it would have been an issue later. So I'm going to fold this back because the next piece is that piece right there, the A2 piece. I'm going to fold it back so you can see. That's the triangle we're after. We're going to use our add a quarter ruler. I know some of you have said, oh, this takes so long. When you're not demonstrating and you've got the rhythm going down, it really doesn't take that long.
I find it difficult.
Okay, so we're going to get, and so I know some of you, when you first started, said there is no way I'm ever going to be able to do this. But they seem to be more and more comfortable with it all the time. So now on this one, I've got quite a bit of freezer paper sticking out there. You don't want to get your iron touching that. It just kind of messes up your iron, and then you've got to stop and clean your iron. Even if I don't get all of this blue triangle stuck to my freezer paper, I've got enough of it stuck to my freezer paper that it's going to be out of my way. Get rid of that thread tail. Now my next piece is A3, which is my diamond shape. I'm going to peel the paper back and use my add a quarter ruler. You can use just a regular ruler for this part. It's just a whole lot faster to not have to look for a 1/4 inch line, because it just butts up there and snugs up where it's supposed to. So this piece is my white piece. And I can line this up right along the edge here where I'm going to stitch. Here's the shape I need. So I know I've got plenty this way, I've got plenty that way. And I can just pull this over, put the fabric right side up, slide it underneath your paper foundation. Cliff, I'm going to need my pin cushion here in a minute.
You didn't know you was going to make that when you said
Well, I forgot.
She wanted you to feel needed.
I want him to be a part of this. Okay, so my last piece is this A4 piece, so I can peel that back. And thank you. And use my Add a quarter, get rid of my seam allowance, and the last piece I need to add is a yellow triangle. Now this one's going to go on that way. Do you see why? Slide it underneath your the whole foundation that you're working with. Flip it back.
Doesn't she make that look easy?
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
Well, but see, when you watch the YouTube video, you can watch me one at a time and stop it and go sew
So
that.
what we really need is we need a big TV in our sewing room,
Yeah,
like
there
that,
you
so
go.
that we can play it.
Well, I'm going to tell you where you can get it. Okay, so now I'm ready to trim all the way around. And now I know exactly what size this needs to be because I'm just adding a 1/4 inch all the way around my shape with my 1/4 ruler. And I'm going to be combining some pieces now. So this piece goes right to, no, I've got them backwards. That goes that way. Okay, so you see what I've already done.
Yeah,
I had them backwards because
already.
that has to go there. So we're going to sew it together anyway.
So technically,
I have
your
one
white
right.
and blue should be
Yes,
flip-flop?
these two should be, these two should have been flipped. Because when I had it here, turned this way,
Oh, yeah.
that was correct.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of decide, are you going to work upside down or are you going to work right side up? Because I should have had my pieces
All upside down.
laying this way.
I
Yeah.
took
Okay.
my colors on mine.
And that's also sometimes helpful to put your color numbers on there. And your sheet tells you. Of course, I
I
wasn't
do that first. I put
following the sheet, but anyway. Okay, so,
I write all the colors on there too.
okay. Now, what I'm going to do, we're going to pretend that I have all the colors in the right place.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you how you assemble these two pieces and then all the way around. I've already assembled some of them because they had the pieces. Now, this is basically how I do templates, as if this was templates, because I'm really finished with the paper piecing part. We're going to just scoot this all out of our way. Now, I have two pieces here that need to fit together, and if the seam allowances weren't there, I could tape that together and that paper would be one piece, because they printed together and I cut them apart. So now what I'm going to do is find my pin, and I'm going to pin right into the corner of my triangle paper, my paper triangle, maybe. And then I'm going to check the back here, and I want to pin right into the corner of that. And sometimes you can see through the fabric enough to tell when you're hitting it. And that's my placement pin. If I take that pin and do this, what is that going to do to my, it's going to automatically shift it. So I put that in, and I just hold that with my fingertips and slant a pin in as close to that point as I can get. Then I'm going to also put my pin right in the point there, and then I can check here. That's actually right on that seam, and it's going to fit right there. And we're just going to snug that up. Now theoretically, if I get this part pinned, this part is automatically in the right place. And after a while, you'll get to where you can pin one end of that, and it'll stay in the right place for you, and you can just stitch across it. Now, when you're doing Y seams, you would stitch from point to point. I'm not doing a Y seam here, so I'm going to stitch all the way across, and I'm going to actually start stitching in the V here and end in the V here. Just the way that happens to fall. And we're going to get that pin out of the way because I've got my... I'll just lay that there. Okay, so there's that one. And all of these others I've pressed toward the smaller section. So I'm going to do that with this one as well.
Any particular reason?
Just because that's what I did with all the rest. And actually,
A lot of those I split
I'm not
open.
sure. Yeah, sometimes you can open them, especially when you're putting sections together. Sometimes it's helpful to press them
Yeah.
open. And especially when you do the next part, you'll press them open. Now, on this one, I'm getting ready to put that together. And there's several places where it has to match. I want it to match exactly here, here, and then it should line up in the other places. So the first places I'm going to pin is, are these places where my blue meets blue to form that little square. And so I'm going to put a pin right where that line comes in the paper, and then I'm going to make sure on this side I'm coming right to that line as well. And I'm going to snug that up together, and I'm going to put another pin in and slant it in. I can slant it in now that I've got it stabilized. And now I'm going to put one right at the end of this line. And I'm going to flip it around and make sure I'm right in the end of that line. There we go. And then I'm going to slant a pin in to hold that in place. Now, because of the way I cut this, I know these two ought to match. So I'm going to check it. And they do. And I'm going to slant a pin in. This time I don't even have any paper to pin through. I'm just pinning through the seam allowance. And the same thing here. I can check that just by putting my pin in. And we're going to straighten that up just a little bit.
Show that just a little better under the camera so they
Okay.
can see after you get a pin and touch what you were talking about.
Okay, let me get rid of that. Whoa.
This is just a little at an angle.
Okay. Am I where you can see me? I need to match that point to that point, and this point to this point, and then the same thing to the very tips of my triangles here and here, match up here and here. Okay? And I do the two pin method where you first of all stabilize it and then pin it to hold it in place. And again, since I'm not doing Y seams on this part right here, I don't have to stop and start at the corners. I can start right at the edge. Because even though this is kind of a complex block, there are no Y seams on it, so it still works pretty well. Okay. So now I have one corner. And on this, I would open that seam up. I would also not use gray thread. I would use cream thread on this, but that's what was on the machine. So, and the reason I say that, you may be able to see little tiny lines of gray right there. And that usually has more to do with the tension of your machine. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I match it up in the same places. And I'm going to pretend that I've already done that because I want to put the two corners. Stop and think. I'm going to put these together even though the colors are wrong. Because it should be over there. Let me match up one that's right. Of course I would pick the one that's not going to be right. So let me do another one. I'm going to match in those same lines. And I can see through the fabric enough that I didn't have to turn it over. I could tell that I was in the right place. And then I'm going to match up here and here. And by the way, and this is going to match up here on the end, when you're using freezer paper, your freezer paper will go through your printer. If you want to go to the grocery store and buy a roll of freezer paper and cut it to an 8.5 by 11 inch rectangle, it will run through your printer. If you don't want to go to the trouble of cutting it, you can actually buy it already pre-cut. And we have been out, but we did get some in today. So. Okay. There we go. I'm going to press that down real good. Now, what I was going to do a minute ago, I'm going to find one of these that I can put it together this way. Because you're just putting together two halves of the block. Let's see if I can do that. It's going to give me, let's do it this way. So I get that triangle there, even though the colors are wrong. Now where I need to match up are here, here, and then I'll want to make sure that I'm matched up here. The corners, theoretically, if I get those other three places matched up, they'll line up without any trouble. So I'm going to put my pin in right where the paper makes a corner there, and I'm going to turn it over and snug them up right there together. And a lot of times I'll just put the pin in between my fingers. You probably can't see that on the camera. Right in between my fingers. And snug them up together. And then I'm going to put a slant of pin in there to hold everything in place. And again, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to pin right to that point. And the same place on the other side. Hold the pin still and slant in a pin. And now I want to make sure that my seams line up here. So I'm going to have a seam here and then here. And I can tell that I'm just a little off, so I'm going to move. There we go. And now, gotta see if that was, nope, nope. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. I'm gonna take the pins out as you go. If you sew over pins, make sure you slow down, because if you're using a fine pin, it will deflect the needle if you're going slow enough. If you go too fast, it'll break the needle, and it could mess up the timing on your machine, and you don't want that. So I'm going to go on across and get rid of that one. Okay, and this is where you want it to match here, here, and here, which we did pretty well if I hadn't messed up the colors. So then you're going to do the same thing here. When you get this one together, it's going to be like that, and then it's going to end up next to that. Nope, like that. Like that. See the two yellow, see the two yellows that fit together? Yes, ma'am. I thought you, you're resting your hands. I thought she was saying, I want to say something. Okay, so I could take the time to do this, but I'm going to skip that, and then if somebody has questions, we can do that. Okay, so did anybody bring show and tell?
Yes.
Yay. And I know some of you are staying caught up with all your blocks. If you're not, don't feel bad.
That's how many you should have done.
But don't feel bad, Mom.
No.
I'm not even doing it.
It goes much easier.
I haven't done the last 2 years, so I'm way far behind.
But
You're not behind unless you start.
I know.
There you go.
there we go. Okay. Diane, show us what you brought.
Oh, I needed a baby quilt, so. Neighbor, young couple is having a baby, so. Still had some of this stuff left. Oh, these that you flip flop, but after I got all, and I mean, it's, the binding and everything is on before I found something I didn't like. Can you tell what it is?
The middle one.
The middle one lines up, it should be, see how you flip the center? You flip this one, so this is on the bottom here.
Oh,
That, okay, but when you flip it, that center one stays the same, so I probably should have put it somewhere else.
Cute.
Oh, I so remember that when you try it.
Nobody's coming.
Well, I noticed it, but not until I was done. I laid it on the floor to take a picture, it's like,
That's the way it was meant to be.
Yep.
I think if
Maybe
it
that's
wasn't more solid, if it was one of these busy ones, it wouldn't be so bad, but,
It looks great.
Dark blue lines up too.
yeah.
Yeah, and your light blue.
Well, these two should line up. These two line up.
The only thing you
This
could
one
have done
flipped.
is put that
However,
in a
this
different.
is the one that bugs me.
Oh.
See, I think it
I
looks
think it looks
deliberate.
I think it
nice.
looks
Well,
fine.
it is
Now just
now.
tell them you did it on purpose.
It's a design
Your
element.
design you developed.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Put the
think
baby's name on that one. That's in the
Hard-
middle.
we don't know the baby's name yet.
Yeah, but see, she was saying you could use that to write the baby's name on it, and then it would
Right
be
there in that one spot in the
intentional.
middle.
Yeah.
Be a
Anyway,
good place to put it.
and then of
There
course
you
my
go.
blacks, and I'm working on the bloom one too, so that's really been fun. I haven't
Bloom
bought that.
is, yeah, we still got a couple of kits. I didn't want to say anything if we didn't have any kits left.
Did your
Um,
templates come in?
It is a Lori Hope sew along applique
That
one,
is absolutely fun.
and the patterns are free online, and the fabric in that kit is everything that she's using on her website. And just for a little bee in your ear, we're going to do her Christmas sew along, and it starts in June, and it's kind of the same sort of a deal.
Or July.
It may be July. I can't remember when the fabric's supposed to come, but she'll start putting her patterns on there, and then we have purchased all the fabric that she's going to use for her Christmas one.
So it's a Christmas line of
Are
fabric?
they gonna be applique, or do you?
They are going to be applique.
All of them?
I have a picture. Let me see if it's still on my phone. If it is, I'll pass my phone around so you can see it, because I took a picture of it the other
You
day.
can probably show it on
Oh, well, I could probably do that if I can find it.
you can all see without passing.
Nope, I must have taken it off. So anyway, it's in the book in there by the cutting table if you want to see it. That it'll show what pieces or what we're going to have. But there is some applique involved and some piecing and kind of a fun, whimsical Christmas quilt. Anybody else bring show and tell?
Our rainbow blocks that we worked on
No,
all
goody.
year, this is what I did with my rainbow blocks, which I'm not finished, but.
And she was doing paper piecing at that time, the little
Yes.
tulip on the
These-
inside.
This
Hold it
is
up.
paper piecing, and then I learned how to do flying geese, and then I also learned how to do all these wiggly lines on my machine.
Can you hold it up higher? There you go.
Don't look at the bags here.
You can do it any color.
No, she's at an angle.
Okay,
Okay,
I
nope.
like that.
Okay, here we go.
That's very cute. And for those of you who didn't know what she was talking about, last year, I have no idea who it was, somebody had a rainbow challenge, and each month she would give you a color. It was a blog that Kathleen followed, and we would use that color to make whatever block we wanted to make. And I know several of you have made some, but that's the first one I've seen the project.
Finished.
Kathleen has a bunch of them that she did too. Okay, and she has show and tell
Are you want me
too.
to do mine now?
Yes,
Someone
and I,
has robbed the picture.
Someone
no
has
idea.
what?
the pictures
Robbed the picture.
disappeared.
Robbed it? I didn't.
Okay,
I should be taking pictures.
This one's a real simple, this was the one, the Rainbow Scrap Quilts challenge that I did. And this is the technique where you put two, I use 6-inch squares, and then you get a negative and a positive when you're done with it to make your 9 patches. So this will be a baby quilt, rather bright baby quilt.
Nothing wrong with that.
That one, I was trying to get some more done to show you, but I have to make some more blocks. Then Pam at Dogwood did her class, and I finished.
Oh, I guess
My
I could have
flying
showed
pigs
that too,
quilt.
huh?
It's got
It's migrating pigs.
pigs and bacon and
Yeah,
eggs.
the fabric has bacon and eggs and chubby pigs.
It's when
Isn't
pigs
that
fly.
just the
Yeah, when
cutest
pigs
fabric?
fly.
Oh, I like that.
When pigs fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, when pigs fly. So I finished that. So now this is what I'm going to practice quilting on myself. It's manageable. So, but it was fun and it was so easy.
Yeah, it breezed through. I was
You
surprised
can
I got a whole
see it.
strip done.
I
Gotta
felt
do
just
it.
Well, I'm teaching it again in Bella Vista in September, so.
Okay, then I'll need help with this one. Okay, this one we started, I believe, in either 2010, because I started quilting on it
Which one
in
is that?
2011.
Oh, yes, I think it was
The
2010,
sampler.
or it might have even been before that.
I didn't continuously quilt on it all that time. I kind of stopped.
Seen this
Yeah,
one.
that was on
Oh, the bunny's upside down. We gotta get the bunny right.
This was one of the first
Yeah, it's a big quilt.
Big ones we didn't
It's a
like.
big quilt.
That one's
I can't even get it up all the way.
And she's hand quilting it.
I can't, yeah, I'm done.
You're finished, huh?
I'm done, yeah.
It
I
was
was putting the binding on.
a fun
Here's your
one.
pin.
Yeah, my last
Underneath.
one. But anyway, yeah, there's some more in the bottom.
Oh, that's good.
That's very pretty.
Yes, I'm so glad it's done.
It's heavy.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody at this table bring show and tell? Before I make Laura show hers too. Show hers again so I can get a picture.
Janet, where's your show and tell? Surely you finished something.
Well, I have, but I didn't bring it.
Oh,
Okay, Laura, let me take a picture of yours.
yes.
It's not finished.
Oh my goodness, what is the deal with this?
Yeah, nobody will, on the downside, nobody will know.
Okay,
There you go.
I gotta go get Carly.
okay. Okay, I want to see your face.
You can't get both.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't get both, I'm too short.
And I need to see hers again.
You gonna be bottom?
Diane, I need to see yours again to take a picture of.